Hello, I'm Denver, and I have a question. So, what is your current position, and how does it relate to young people?
Shall I answer first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So my name's Ella. I'm a police officer. So I work, my whole role is around community engagement in Suffolk and Lambeth. How does it relate to young people? I mean, in many, many ways, a lot of different things. It varies. So like we'll speak about in a bit around building that trust and confidence. And a lot of that is around young people having very little trust in the police. So we do a lot of work with young people for that. Another part of my role will be whenever there's a critical incident on Suffolk and Lambeth, myself and my colleague who isn't here, we go into that where that has happened and we'll address what's happened and basically speak to the community in the shops or the residents and figure out what the police can be doing better for them at that point in time. And sadly, a lot of those critical incidents involve young people at the minute. So that will be around supporting their family and the community really, and the impact of what's happened after something really serious has happened.
Cool. And I'm Ricky, I'm a youth worker. So the reason it relates to young people is I work specifically with young people and their families sometimes as well. But I myself was a bit of a troubled teenager, I got into some trouble. So I work with a lot of young people that have a lot of the same issues and try and kind of get them out of it, steer them on the right path, as we say.
My name is Emily, and my question is, why do you believe young people carry knives?
Why do you think young people carry knives, Emily?
To be safe.
To be safe?
Protect themselves.
Any others?
Because they have to.
Why do you think they have to?
Because maybe they feel that they're not safe, and they think having something to help them will make it better.
Mm-hmm. I would kind of agree with those 100%. I think there's so many different reasons. So someone could have fear, and their fear of being stabbed themselves, their fear of the pressure, so they're going to carry a knife. On the other side, someone could want to create fear and be intimidating. Someone could feel that they haven't got that confidence in themselves and they have to bully other people to get that ego. So they're like, I'm going to carry a knife and be that guy. It could be peer pressure from social media as well, from my friends. Yeah, I think there's so many different reasons why someone carries a knife.
I think Ricky's touched on all of them. I think a main part is what you've all said around that protection side of things, and I think really sadly a lot of young people feel like they need to protect themselves, and it's that idea if they feel like everyone else has got a knife, even if they might not, but in their head they think that they do, then they feel like they have to protect themselves. And I've seen it quite a lot with quite young people, and their first interaction will be having a knife with the police, and that might be because they've been robbed or something like that, and they just feel like they need to do that as a consequence. But yeah.
My name is Hilda, and my question is, what impact has youth violence had in your work?
I think youth violence has had a massive impact in the work. So I work with young people that they could have so many different problems, right? They could have anxiety, so they're not going to school because they're having a lot of problems in the school. They could have problems at home where they're kicked out. They could be getting arrested. They could be going to country and doing, selling drugs and things like that. A lot of the time, a lot of this relates around kind of fear in the community. So why is this person selling drugs? Well, initially we might answer because he wants to make money. But if you look deeper into it, actually he's got a lot of fear around the community, and he realised that he can build his status up and be more of a bigger man and respected if he sells drugs and if he carries a knife, which then in turn means that he may use that knife. So just to kind of go back to our last question, you're more likely to be stabbed if you carry a knife with you. So that's the statistic. So if you carry a knife, you're more likely to be stabbed than someone that doesn't carry one. So I think it's just a cycle. That young person carries a knife, someone sees that kid in the estate, he's got a knife. So now they're both carrying a knife, they get into an altercation, they're not going to use their fist, they're going to use a knife. So I think it's just a big spiral.
Yeah, I think from the police side of things, anyway, it goes hand in hand. A lot of the time you see the effects of youth violence. That might be because police are often first on scene to young people that might have been stabbed. So that can directly impact on officers. And then also the work that I do now in terms of around that critical incident, I've met quite a few parents of young people who have been killed, and you really get to see firsthand what it does to people's families. And yeah, it's not a nice thing to see, and I think police often get to see the real really detrimental and really awful impact that violence can have very quickly after it's happened.
What do you think the police are doing to help build trust with young people?
That's a really good question. So in terms of my work and what we do, we're trying to do it in loads of different ways. If I'm honest, I think that personally the main thing that we can do is just build level relationships one-to-one, so people meet me, hopefully you see me as Ella, I'm pretty normal I hope, and then you think of me as a police officer after that. So really I think for young people it's about building that trust through personal relationships. So myself and my colleague try and do that when we'll go into different youth groups, and we'll just talk to people, we'll just show people who we are, engage with them, and then slowly over time we'll get them involved in things. So some things we really want to do is open the doors of policing so that young people can come in and actually see what we do. So whether that's come to training, we took some young people down to Gravesend in Kent where we do our public order training, so like protests and like riot policing, and they get thrown fire at them and things, and all the young people get to see that, and then again with firearms training. But also what we really want to do is bring young people into our own training and how we can train officers. So we have groups of young people from Brixton who'll come in and train new recruits up at Hendon. So they give them their lived experience and their personal experience of what it's like to be policed, and can try and have a bit of an influence on the new generation of police officers. Again, some of the things that we're doing in terms of, we're running an esports tournament, so we take esports consoles around to different youth groups in Southwark and Lambeth, and we play FIFA and 2K with young people, and basically just try to again relate to them on a level, and just have, sometimes when it's a police officer sat next to you playing FIFA, you'll forget that they're a police officer because you just want to beat that person at FIFA. And then again, we do a lot at the Blackman's Trust and trying to have a youth club, because a lot of what we hear, especially nowadays from young people, is there isn't really much to do after school and have that youth provision. So we're trying to set up something there where we run family fitness, boxing, and just trying to engage in different ways beyond what young people generally see, which is around stop and search and arresting, and what you might see from a clip or a video, but just allowing more opportunities for young people to meet police officers in completely different, much more comfortable environments.
Do you think most young people trust police?
No,
That's fair enough.
Why do they not trust them?
because like if you tell something to police, they might like tell other people.
Feel like they're gonna sneak them out.
So like fear of being a snitch almost, kind of.
Yeah.
And what do you think? So do you think the main thing is that police will tell others that you've, in terms of that lack of protection almost from the police?
Yeah.
If you were in danger, would you call police to help?
Yeah. It depends what kind of danger for some people.
What would you not call police for?
Because I'd call the police for everything, but
Alright.
some people like maybe like they would call their friends instead to try to help them if they're like being intimidated and stuff.
It's funny though, because I agree with you. Like, I understand why a lot of people don't trust police. I spend a lot of my time not trusting. But when we are like needing help, when in certain situations, we do kind of rely on police and put trust in them.
Do you think any of that is influenced by what you see online, or things that you see beyond what you've seen yourself in terms of?
Yeah.
What kind of stuff would that be? Like clips?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think a lot of that is around things like stop and search? Yeah. I think that's massive for us, and I think it's really important that you guys know that we don't condone each other's behaviour because we're all police officers. Just because I'm a police officer and he's a police officer doesn't mean I protect everything that he does. Police officers get it wrong a lot of the time, and I think we need to be able to call each other out, and that's where we need to address that culture. But equally, I think in terms of clips online, and this can happen quite often, is it's really important to look at the wider context and what's happened before and after that video is taken, because sometimes there might be a reason why police officers are there. So it's difficult with social media, I think, and I can completely understand why people do not trust the police. So hopefully through some of the work that we're doing, it can just get a bit better.
How could we get better trust for police? Because you guys say most young people don't trust them, so how could we start to trust them?
By like maybe the police could go out and like talk to more kids and stuff.
Engagement. And how do you think the police can help in terms of what you first said around not trusting police because fear of almost what other people and that snitching kind of thing. How can the police help that, do you think?
Reassuring them.
Reassurance.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and reassurance around maybe how that we are there to help and we will keep people safe, probably. Makes sense.
What is the hardest part of your role when you're trying to engage with young people?
The perception that people have of the police, and the distrust that we face at the minute. And again, I can completely understand that, but that's probably the main barrier that we face, is just getting over what people's perceptions are of us.
For me, a lot of my job consists of, I want you to open up and tell me what's going on in your life, so I can maybe try and support you and give you advice around it. And that means I need trust. And most young people, fair enough, don't trust professionals. And I'm not going to trust that young person as well, because we've just met each other. So a lot of it is about building that relationship first to get that engagement. So then he can trust me and I can trust him, so we can share.
Do you think youth violence affects young girls differently, and how?
Yes, we were having a quick discussion about this before. I think women and young girls, and I don't think they can ever really be compared, but I think we both experience things very differently in terms of young women and young men. What we were saying before around some of the exploitation, I think young girls can sometimes face exploitation that may have a sexual element, which is really, really worrying. And again, there's a wider societal issue that we have around culture when it comes to how we treat women and girls that can really affect young women, I think.
Are the police doing anything to build relationships with young people?
Yeah, so my whole role is around building relationships with young people. You have police in a whole number of roles. You've got youth engagement officers, schools officers are there to build relationships, and then again community engagement officers. So we really just want to go in and make connections with people and do the work which involves building that trust. So things like a police-led youth club that we're starting up, esports roadshows, and just different ways. We're trying to figure out different ways that we can engage with young people. But yeah, we are really trying our best to constantly engage with young people and just build trust.
What would you say is the difference between violence that girls encounter and that boys encounter?
I think it's different because the boys could do like more violent stuff, and the girls could do like more stuff like holding stuff for people and just like being used by other people. Yeah.
It's like girls are more likely to get pressured more to do stuff. Like with a relationship, something you don't want to do, they can then use stuff against them.
I feel like it's different because like girls are more likely to be like threatened and like forced to do something that they don't want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
How do you think young people can stop youth violence?
How do you think you're young? So how do you guys think you can stop youth violence?
Or like everyone getting along and stuff, and like there's no problems.
Is there anything you then think that we can do as adults in these kind of roles to help in that sense? Or you think that we should be doing that we're not doing in terms of that?
Like to stop like violence and stuff, there could be more police around areas just in case someone doesn't feel safe and stuff.
Like be there for one another more and comfort them and like be able to like gain their trust with what they're telling them.
I think like they should like get along. Everyone should, yeah, and just get along.
So I'm going to be like controversial. Please tell me if you disagree, right? So I think that young people need to take more accountability. For example, I know it was a lot of young people that I have no problem with drill music and people sharing drill music, but are we understanding what we're promoting in the drill music? Are we just at least, and this is for young people, are we accepting this person's whole chorus is just is about how I stabbed someone, right? Are we at least taking accountability that what this person's saying is violent and wrong? It's a good song, okay, it's catchy lyrics, but I feel our young people taking accountability.
Yeah, like some young people may take like that stuff too seriously and think like if they do what they're doing, they could be seen as better and like cooler.
So when you were younger and
Yeah.
you were about to go down a different path and leave school and things like that, is there anything that could have been done then by other maybe older people in your life to prevent that, or would you say that was down to you?
I think part of it was accountability, and I did know what was going on. But I think, yeah, that's a good question, because I needed maybe an adult like myself or a youth worker. So, I mean, I'll be blunt with you, right? A lot of the things I used to do was I was involved in drug dealing, right? And it was the aspiration I wanted to do. Why? Because my favourite role models were rappers who were drug dealers, right? And that's just one reason. But I feel like if I had an adult sitting me down and telling me the truth and the reality of what these trap houses are like, what going to county lines is actually going to do, how you're sleeping on a sofa for 7 days and eating one box of KFC. There's just so many examples of how actually the reality of what you're going into, because all I was seeing was rappers say this is the lifestyle, and police officers saying don't do it, it's wrong. But no one telling me the truth, saying actually, yeah, you're going to get a lot of things out of this. You're going to become popular, you're going to get money, right? But you're going to be living in fear, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have people trying to rob you, stab you, take you to jail. So if someone was honest and told me the truth, then I would weigh up the options and maybe go down a better path. But there wasn't any adults speaking honestly or truthfully to me.
Would you guys say that's the same at school now? Like, would you, if there were adults there, do you think there are people in those roles to do that for people in school who might be?
Some.
I mean, I bet every one of you right now knows someone that's going down that path, right? Or that's involved in a gang. What do you think could stop that person right now?
Like, if they had like a better life,
What would a better life look like?
like a better house and like
Right.
less problems worrying about like money and stuff.
I think that's a massive point, and that does relate to one of the questions that I don't think we went into, but around why people use and get into violence. And I don't personally think that young people intend to be violent. I think a lot of it is the product of their environment, and I think especially now it's worrying with the cost of living crisis. You're going to have people in worse and worse situations, and if your parents are at home and struggling to put food on the table, then you're going to want to find ways to make that happen and to support them, and that can go down. So I think that's a massive point, and that you can realise that is sometimes a young person maybe at home doesn't have everything that other people might have and might turn to different lifestyle for that.
Like if they communicated with like their parents a lot.
Yeah. What do you mean communication? Like speak to them more about what's going on in their lives?
Yeah.
Do you think parents need to know more about what could be going on?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to ask you guys specifically about your parents, but do you think most parents understand what's going on for young people? Right. How do you think you could explain, like, would you be able to explain to your parents what social media really is? Could you really explain to them about, what do you think that?
No, they probably wouldn't understand.
I think if people trusted police, and if police got to a point where they could be trusted, I really do think that could have such a positive impact on young people feeling safe. Because like you've all said, none of you trust the police, and that's completely understandable, but it really scares me that you have young people that might be in situations where they need us, and they really need that help and support, and then they're not able to get it. And that is not anyone else's job but ours to earn that trust to get to that point. But I think if police had that better relationship, and we can keep engaging and keep doing what we're doing to try and get there, I really do think, like you said, if police were out and about when you go to school, if you could see them, if you knew your school's officer really well, if you saw them in school, they can add that other element, another person that could be that support that you could talk to without feeling like you're going to grasp someone up, which is a really dangerous road, because then we stop holding anyone accountable and we stop reporting anything. And I think our responsibility in that sense is to really build that part of that village that is needed to give someone a good life.
I think if people imagine themselves in other people's situation, they would understand it more and try help.
think that adults should like try to understand us and like what it's like to be like us, and they would understand us better.
I think a lot of what I've heard from about like all of these like understanding and kind of putting yourselves in another person's shoes, which I think is like a lot of times where there is youth violence on the street, it's two young people that both had a bad day. They're walking down the street and they look at each other wrong, and they both are not comfortable in their skin to just take a breath. So they have to prove to themselves or fight their ego, or they want to let their stress out. Where if they actually both understood they both had a stressful day and they both want to literally go and just forget about that and relax, then maybe they would get along more. So I think it is about speaking and understanding each other more.
And that's a massive point, and I think that relates into what we were talking about young girls as well, because I remember I think young girls really do suffer more when it comes to like insecurities and self-esteem and things like that, and I think that can often make young women more susceptible to have to vulnerability and be exploited, because it's that not knowing who you are and not being comfortable with who you are, and I remember that so clearly. And I think if you're in that situation but then again you have stresses from outside and danger that could happen, I think that's it's knowing who you are and mental health. And
I think what we forget as well is it's really difficult being a teenager, isn't it? Like we forget that sometimes because we get a bit older, but like it's hard to be a teenager and all your emotions going through and you're discovering life. I like to see it as, I call something a moral compass. So you're deciding what's right and wrong when you're growing up, and it's like police have their own moral compass because they follow the laws, but you growing up as your own adult, you kind of make your own laws and morals in your own life, and it's a difficult one. You're doing that while juggling everything else.
Out of interest, what is the one thing that you wish adults would know about what it's like to be a young person right now?
That it can be very stressful and stuff.
Does that go beyond schooling and stuff, or like
Like in school you have to do tests and you have to take time to do that.
I had social media, but it's so different now to what it was when I was growing up and how much of there is. Do you think that has an impact on what it's like now?
I think it has a positive impact or a negative impact.
Negative.
Negative.
In what way do you think?
Because it makes you like think, oh, I should be like this person, like depending on what you're looking at.
So with that, can it be positive?
Yeah.
Right, so it's about how we use it.
Yeah.
What would be a positive influence on?
Like someone that like talks about the real stuff and like how to like deal with stuff better, and yeah.
But you don't find that there's anyone there currently.
No.
So would you set up your own podcast where you talk about this stuff?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll be honest, I'm when I listen to podcasts, I try and find ones that relate mostly to me, right? So, and I feel like that's what you're more comfortable with. So I kind of agree with you. I would like to go on social media more and hear people that talk like me, or that speak like me, or had the same experiences as me.
Because you don't want the negative. So I don't use Twitter. I'm only on Instagram, but Twitter was like it can be a very negative place, and I think you kind of have to pick and choose. And I try and just keep everything positive because I know the effect. Because how addictive like social media can be sometimes. You realise how subliminal some things can be. So I think if I know everything on there is kind of positive and I've chosen it, then at least I'm not getting any information that I don't want, or it's not negatively affecting me. But it's hard because it is really addictive. I mean, I've not got TikTok for that very reason, that people can sit and scroll for hours on that.
I deleted all my social medias last year because of that. I was scrolling through Instagram late night, 2 a.m, and it was just messing up my head. And I would realise I would watch a random clip of someone walking their dog at 3 a.m, and that's the last thing I think about before I go to sleep. Or I'd watch a violence, someone would post a drill video, or a gang violence, and that would come up on my feed. And that's the last image I'm seeing before I go to bed. And I used to think that's probably not good for my mental health. Right? So I deleted all social medias. But on YouTube, the YouTube shorts, they got me. So now I know about every social media influencer just from YouTube shorts.
Oh wow.
Unfortunate.
But I think the like idealistic view is really important, especially if it's on Instagram. People can put on this life that you then want because you're like, oh, that looks amazing. And I think you have to really remind yourself that probably isn't their life, but they're just not showing you any of the negatives of it.
So we were talking about Andrew Tate earlier.
Yeah.
Do you think he's playing a character, or is he always himself?
I think he's like always himself because he like tells his experiences from the past and stuff.
So Emily, I know you said that there was negative things coming from him. What do you think of him?
That he's not a good influence on younger people because he says a lot of stuff about girls and how it's okay to do these certain things when it's not.
Hilda, what about you?
I think he has a negative impact because he just talks about like girls and like
But you think it's quite positive.
No, I think it has positive and negative impacts.
I agree with you because I think he has some. I think some things he says are correct, and I think some misogynistic things he says about women are completely wrong. And I think he plays a character sometimes. So for me, I feel like I'm able to differentiate when he's saying a joke and when he's not. But I know that 9, 10, 11-year-olds aren't able to do that. And I think that's where a lot of the negativity comes from. They'll just take everything they see as the truth.
Because we know that it's a job, isn't it? It's technically his job and how he makes a lot of his money. So it's people will say things on social media because it makes you money.
Like the positive stuff, he could like say, like be confident and stuff. And he could also say that if you want to have like a good life, there's like a hard journey and you just have to work hard. Stuff like that. The negative, like he says stuff. He like says stuff about girls and like he thinks that like they're seen as objects when they're just like humans. Because like when you look at if he's saying like saying something that's gonna like cause people harm or like make them sad and stuff, that's how you know it's bad. But if he's like trying to encourage people, that's how you know it's good.
So let me ask you then, but if he was listening or if someone's listening to him from a young age before they've decided what's right and wrong, and they've always heard that you treat women like objects, do you think that person would see it as wrong?
Yeah, they see it as okay.
Right. So I guess I'm very glad to hear that someone at 15 is able to differentiate and see the positive and negatives.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a link between social media and the violence and youth violence we see today?
Yeah, I think because like some people may see stuff and then they want to be like that, and then like some people may be in like a position where they don't feel safe, then they like turn to social media to see what they could do, and it's not always the right option and the right way of doing things.
I think like what we mentioned about the threats is really important. It's used as another way in which people can make threats to each other, but then equally what you were saying about glorifying a certain lifestyle, I think it can do a lot of that. About you can see so much readily see everything of like what you could have and all these things, and then you want it, and then that can kind of spiral from there.
Yeah, like for example, like you see like a picture of like some nice shoes that you want to get, and then you don't have the money to get it, so you involve yourself in like stuff to make money to be able to buy like stuff that other people have.
100%. And I think those images show someone really happy wearing those trainers. You know, they never look sad. No one posts their bad days on Instagram, do they? So we see someone happy and on the beach wearing trainers, and you think to yourself, you know what, if I go to those trainers, I'll be that happy too. But obviously, as we know, it doesn't work that way.
I think like what you said, I think one of the ways to combat that is almost people like you telling your story around like, even though that looks good and that looked good to me, here's the reality of what that actually is, and this is what this happened to me. I think that's really important, hearing people's experiences
Or
of it.
what you had to do to get those trainers. You're not going to look at them the same way. I would rather, I know now as a legal grown working man, I was more happy the day I got my first legal paycheck, even though it was less money than anything I did illegally, because I know I worked for it hard and I didn't hurt anyone through it. So yeah, a lot of those people, I wouldn't call them happy with those items on Instagram.
How do you guys think we could work together